Hey, Jim Pelichowski here to demonstrate a common report request, in this case, to be developed in IBM Cognos Report Studio. Often we hear that report users want to see the top 10, top 5, top whatever items in a data set, which is very common in most industries. Using the familiar Cognos samples, this report shows the top 10 employee maximum salaries by branch location. To be more specific, it's really showing the top 10 employee records for each branch location. So for each branch location, there are 10 records here. And I want to make the distinction between that concept and the ranking function that exists in Cognos, because if this represents the top 10 rankings, we may get more than 10 records. Notice also the report groups all other employees into one aggregate total. Also very common in reporting, where we want to see in this case, the top 10 plus the total of the others in one nice flow to a grand total here at the branch location level. Now in this report, in this case, I added another line here called the top 10 total below our branch aggregate, which actually sums up these top 10 records here. But notice also that it stays within the grouping of the branch location. So as we move down the report, for each branch location, it has a consistent look and feel. I want to point out that this report uses a single query behind the scenes in combination with some conditional formatting to get what we need to display. Okay, let's get to it. This video is the quick tutorial version geared toward intermediate and advanced developers. For newer developers or those just getting started with Report Studio, I recommend the extended version link on the site, which goes into deeper detail on how this report was built. Okay, let's start building the report. I'm going to launch Report Studio, and then I'm going to go into the samples provided by Cognos. I'm going to use the Go Data Warehouse query package for this one. Create a new report, and it's going to be a list report. Underneath the HR query folder, I'm going to go into employee summary, and I'm going to select some of the measures here, in particular salary, and I'll pick a couple of other ones here just to fill out the report. Under employee by manager, I'm going to pick the employee name, put that in front of salary, and then I'm going to grab the branch location and put that in front of employee name. Then let's run this just to see what we have. Okay, pretty simple report, nothing special. I want to point out though, underneath our salary measure, this is set by default to aggregate function maximum so that we get the maximum salary per employee. A default set in Framework Manager. The next thing I'm going to do is work on the query behind the scenes, and I'm going to add some data items here so that I can display the top 10 employees' salaries by branch location. The first one I'm going to add is just a simple record count value of 1. That gives a value of 1 for each record. The next one I'm going to add is a running total of that record count, and the only thing I need to make sure I do here is make sure I have my for clause set at the branch region. Then I'm going to add a data item that segregates out the running total count, whether it's less than or equal to 10 or not. And finally, I'm going to add a data item that looks at the previous data item and puts it into some nice English groupings, if you will, for the report display. Okay, so let's just take a quick look at our query and we can view tabular data and just look and see how it, we can see we have all the columns there that we need for now. So one thing I could do real quick is go back to the query and select my salary query item and set that to pre-sort in descending order. Let's go back to the report. Let's go ahead and add our display group name right after branch. And then let's group from branch on over to employee. And then after that, we're going to add, we'll just create the subtotals on the measures. And then on the branch, let's go ahead and make that a section. Now we can actually remove our display group name and ungroup our employees. So the display group name just gave us that subtotal. Let's go ahead and run that. Okay, everything's looking good. Now what we need to do is create some conditional formatting on each of the detail rows so that they don't, or they display when they're supposed to and not display when they're not supposed to. So I'm just creating a Boolean variable that checks our display group if it's equal to 1, which means display the detail. And now I'm going to assign that to the other 3 detail columns here. Try to move as quickly as I can through this. Okay, now that we've got those variables applied, we need to use our Condition Explorer, and then we will actually go to the choice of this variable to no. So if it's no, we want to hide those detail rows. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to set the box type to none. Let's run it. Oops. Looks like we're missing something. Yes, we need to actually use the famous properties. So with the list selected, we need to go into properties, and I'm going to add the 2 items here so that then now we'll display. Now you can see, look at this, we actually have some totals looking there. But you'll notice that we also have the top 10 total. We don't want that one there. We want to remove that. So let's go back and select our grouping here, and we need to select that list row. And in this case, we're going to use the variable to yes and assign the style variable here. In this case, we're just assigning it at the point. And then we'll say box type none here. Now when we run it, we'll get what we're looking for, which is the top 10 plus the other total plus a grand total. Okay, let's start building that top 10 subtotal that's going to sit below the branch total, but be included within the grouping of the branch. So here I'm just adding more rows so that I can see more of the branches. On the main list here that I've selected, I'm going to add a list page footer, and I'm going to essentially just copy in the main header or list above into this list page footer. To get in here, I just had to unlock the report. Once I'm there, I can just copy the main list and paste that right into that footer. And in this case, I don't want the list page footer and the one that I copied into, so I'm going to get rid of that. And now I'm going to create master detail relationship between the 2 lists on the branch region. So that will ensure that those 2 lists are linked together and will display the subtotals I want to within each branch. The next thing I'm going to do here is hide or set box type none on columns that I know that I don't want to show. We know in this case we're only going to show a subtotal for the top 10, so I'm just hiding stuff that I know that I don't need, such as in this case the branch total, since we already have that. And then effectively what I'm doing here is reversing some of the conditional formatting that I did in the main list header, because in this case we want to show the top 10 total line and not the other line. So that's why I'm reversing the display top 10 detail here. Now when I run the report, I should get, and I do, a top 10 total line there footed with each branch. Okay, we've accomplished our main goal. Now let's clean this report up a little bit so it's presentable. And I'm just going to do some rearranging the classes that Cognos puts in by default into its lists. In this case, I'm working on the section header here. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just going to force the visible columns to be specific pixel widths, if you will. Nothing earth-shattering here, and I'm sure from a formatting standpoint folks have other ideas on how to do this, but I'm going to save that for another video. Here I'm setting the width of the list that's inside the footer to 100%, so I know that it's spreading across that list footer cell, that list cell. I'm also going to take the class off of the list footer cell so that I know that I have a clean cell there now that will line up with what's above. And for the display grouping totals that we created, I'm going to change this class from list outer footer cell to list column body cell. And when I do that, I have to make sure that you notice that my columns, the numbers need to be right justified here. So I'm going to right justify those so those line up. Then on my display grouping total here, which is going to show the top 10 subtotal, I'm going to give that a different color. I'm going to make it yellow background. And that should do it. So if I run the report, we should get a decent looking report here. Again, this is not a video for formatting, but here we go. We've got our final report. I certainly hope you find this video helpful.